Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're doing very well. Here we are then. We are into the first international break, and at this point last season, Jose Mourinho had lost 2 games to Brighton and Spurs, but he'd won 2 against Leicester and against Burnley, and he had 6 points. And at this point, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we have played the same amount of games, but we only have 5 points. We've only lost 1 game, but we've drawn 2. So I think this show, I wasn't going to do it as a live show, and then I thought, actually, you know what, it really should be a live show, because what we're going to do here is we're going to assess Ole Gunnar Solskjaer his first 4 games, his early season report, look at his tactics, what we think he's doing right, what we think he's doing wrong, and what the future might hold. Now, I was messing around with something there, so I may as well show it to you. There's the Premier League table at the moment. As we can see, Manchester United firmly in 8th position, with Spurs, with Sheffield United, the same record, both teams... all 3 teams losing 1, drawing 2, winning the other. We've got Leicester up next. They've won their last 2, having drawn their first 2 against Chelsea and against Wolves. And they're looking good, and we're not looking so good. So we are where we want to be. This is not that made-up league that we were talking about before, whereby you can be second based on fantasy. We are in 8th position as a football club. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, look, was it 3 wins in 16? I saw somebody saying today that if that was Mourinho, then the old class of '92 would be all over the manager. But because it's Ole and he's a club legend, the people aren't doing that. I think that story's true, but we as fans are like that as well. So it's not like it's unfair to say, oh, people like Paul Scholes aren't going in on Solskjaer, etc., etc. The fans aren't doing that either as well at the moment. But there was an interesting story coming out from The Sun this morning. It was Neil Custis and another writer. So you could take it with a pinch of salt or you could believe it. It's up to you. But basically, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer angry after the loss against Southampton that what's happening on the training pitch isn't being implemented on the football pitch when they're actually playing games. Look, I'd be stunned if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't angry after that game. I really would be. I mean, I would be stunned if he wasn't happy after the Crystal Palace game. That's management. And ultimately, we can talk about Mourinho's record. We can talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's record. But the bottom line is it will come back on the manager. The players are just a representation of the manager. The manager for years and years in all clubs, in all leagues, has always been the person that will take the blame if things aren't going well. And just funnily on Mourinho, he had 1 more point after the first 4 games. He went and won his next game against Watford. I think he then drew against Wolves and he lost against West Ham. So he was still picking up those points. And you look at what we've got over the next few games, Ole is already behind what Mourinho did last season, and he's got to start picking up those points quickly. So points are what management's all about. And when the players are performing badly, that reflects on you. I liked a comment from Paul Scholes that I read today, actually, that was that the senior players are letting down the younger players. When Matic came on, he gave the ball away. Young constantly gave the ball away, and he said Pogba gave the ball away as well. I mean, Pogba had a terrible game until he moved into the more advanced position. So, yeah, you know, I think that the senior players have been a problem. But Ole has got to turn this around very, very quickly. I mean, there is a level of patience. There is a level of, let's see what happens. But also, it is Manchester United and reality's got to bite. I mean, I was looking at the comments. Does PSG signing Navas mean that David De Gea is signing soon? Says AB. I think that David De Gea will sign his contract soon. I've always felt that. And Zayn Miassi says, Mark, maybe Woodward was put in as a mould to destroy your club, or is the most incompetent person ever. I mean, Woodward actually was part of buying the club many years ago. And welcome to Get Slammed, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. But before I went live, I saw one of the comments. I think his name was PC. Saying too much negativity on here, and I thought, well, you know what? Why not shout that out? I mean, it's a really baseless comment to say too much negativity on here if you don't actually give a reason for it. But secondly, I think negativity is pretty much justified when you've had the last 6 years that we've had. We had all this promise in the summer, or we've had a great tour, everyone's been holding hands, everyone's really up positive in the club, and then we have a shit start to the season. So negativity is absolutely fine because you've got to have a vision. You can have hope is positivity, but negativity can sometimes be reality, and the reality isn't good enough. It really isn't. But having said that, look, if I look at the first 4 games of the season, Chelsea dominated us, but we won, and we deserved to win, 3 points. Wolves away from home, we dominated them. We only had 1 goal to show for it, and ultimately we came out with a draw, having missed a penalty. But for all the domination and all the possession, we ended up with the same amount of shots on target as they did. And remember, they hit the post. So a draw. We have Crystal Palace at home. look, we should have won that game. I agree we should have won that game. We had the possession. We had enough chances to win that game. But ultimately, Crystal Palace scored 2, we scored 1. We missed a penalty. We didn't take our chances. We lost that game. Southampton away, again, game management was good, but I tend to err on the side that, yeah, we had a lot of chances, but a lot of them were half chances. There wasn't really any clear-cut chances, and I think that's something that we're struggling with. And Southampton obviously held out with 20 minutes, and I thought the substitutions and the game management weren't great. And I think when I look at that team on the left, and I mean, that's a summary of the opening 4 games of the season, but I feel that is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's best 11 that he certainly came into the season with. And yeah, he's had to adjust it a little bit, but I feel that is his best 11. Whether that's going to still be his best 11, whether he's tweaking that, I think he came into the season and that was his best 11. And has it let him down or not? Well, we're going to give him a rating out of 10 so far. Zayn Miassi says, Mark, the players are paid too much. It's like Arsenal. Too many crap players is paid too much. They won't listen to Ole as you can't sack a player, etc. Well, he might be onto something there with player power, I suppose. But a good manager manages, and a good manager clears the decks. And a good manager, Manchester United had an opportunity this summer to move Paul Pogba on, and they decided to keep him. You cannot not moan about Paul Pogba's inconsistency. I mean, just on Pogba. I mean, Ollie always says this, and Pogba always seems to come up in every video. But I think United fans have got to be very, very careful about moaning about Paul Pogba's inconsistency this season. Manchester United Football Club and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had an opportunity to sell him. Like, they could have sold him in June and they could have replaced him in July. They didn't do that. So all these United fans who want to go in on Pogba and say he's inconsistent, well, look, maybe he is. Well, he certainly is. Over the last 3 years, he's been very inconsistent and he's been very good. That's why he's inconsistent. He can be brilliant, he can be bad. But the club and the manager decided to force him to stay. Now, we had an opportunity to remove that player. We had a couple of buyers for that player, and that money could have been used to bring in players that were available, such as Bruno Fernandes and Thomas Partey. So that deal could have been done. Why wasn't it done? Pogba wanted it to be done. It wasn't done because the manager and the club didn't want to do it. So you've got, sometimes I think when you have an issue, you've got to look at, am I being naive in that issue or agenda? Because actually, he's here because the club and the manager are forcing him to stay. Now, that might be the right decision over the course of the season, but there was an opportunity to move Pogba on, and we didn't do it. So when these fans start moaning about Pogba giving the ball away and moaning about Pogba being inconsistent, and I would say that about Paul Scholes as well, he's been here for 3 years doing that, and Ollie and the club decided to keep him. It's on their shoulders. It's on the club, and it's on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with Pogba, because there was an opportunity to move him on. Murray says, but Mark, we're second in the stats, so we're great. Yeah, look, United could be in a better position, but ultimately, I think it would be unfair just to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and not talk about the players. So, if that is his best 11, how do they feature this season? And I would say, you know what, after a good start, David De Gea is probably a 6, and a 6 is an average score out of 10, isn't it? So I'd give De Gea a 6. Some good things, but I wouldn't say he's been terrible, and I wouldn't say he's been world class. He's just been average as a player. Wan-Bissaka, I think you'd have to give him a 9. I think he's been absolutely sensational, and arguably player of the month, absolutely superb. Lindelof, I wouldn't go as far as some people would go as to give him a 5, but I'd give him a 6. And Maguire, I wouldn't go as far as some people are going to say he's been amazing. I think he's been better than average. He's been a steady 7. And I would probably give Luke Shaw a 6, because I think he's done good things, but he's obviously done bad things as well. So I'd put him in the same sort of category as De Gea. Moving into the midfield, over the course of the season, at the moment, I would probably give Scott McTominay a 5. And some people would say that's a little bit harsh, but I don't want to drop McTominay. I want to go down that path. We didn't bring any midfielders in. I don't want Matic back in the team. So I'm not saying drop McTominay. I'm just saying, I think against Wolves, I think against Palace, he didn't play particularly well. And I think he needs to improve. So I would give him a 5. I think with some players, McMayo, McSauce, he's got a good nickname. He tries really hard. Let's give him 8 out of 10. Well, actually, based on the performances of the first 4 games of the season, we've got 5 points from 12. We can't give everybody 6s and 7s and 9s. Otherwise, why have we got 5 points from 12? There has to be issues in that team. So for me, McTominay hasn't been as good as he could be. But I would stick with him. That's what I would do. Similarly, with Pogba, I can only give Pogba a 6. And you could say, why are you giving McTominay 5 and Pogba a 6? Well, I think Pogba has done a little bit more than McTominay. Should he be doing more than that? Yes, he should. But I think, as we know, this won't come as a surprise to everybody. When you're looking for the points as to why we've dropped the points, we're going to start identifying those issues at this point here. Zayn Marcy, Mark Pogba's been average since he joined. He's a disgrace. He's paid 15 million a year. What more incentive do you need to play well? Zayn, you're an Arsenal fan. Stop making comments now. You've made 3. You're starting to irritate people. You're an Arsenal fan. You don't really know what you're talking about in relation to Paul Pogba. And actually, instead of tapping away with your super chats, maybe listen to what I spoke to about 2 minutes ago. And you've just contradicted yourself, because I've just said anybody who's having a pop at Paul Pogba, I'm tired of it. It's boring because the club decided to keep him. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer decided to keep him. They're forcing him to stay. So all you slagging off of Pogba, it's irrelevant. It's stupid. It's idiotic, because the club could have got him. He wanted to go, and we forced him to stay. So every bad performance from Paul Pogba, as far as I'm concerned, we've seen it, like you say, over the last 3 years. We've seen his inconsistency, but the club have forced him to stay. Now, whether they're doing that for marketability reasons, I don't know. But every game Pogba has a bad performance, I'm not going to go, oh, Pogba's done it again, get out of my club, you dabbing prat. I'm going to say, well, you've done that for 3 years, mate. You wanted to go. We forced you to stay. It's on the club. Pogba's performances this year are on the club. It's either genius or it's more of the same. The veteran trainer says, I was reflecting on why I'm so frustrated this season, knowing we are in a rebuild. I think it's because full points have been there for the taking and the team bundles away. We've dropped. I mean, look, we are talking about the collective season here. We have dropped a lot of points early season against teams that we shouldn't have dropped. Crystal Palace are going to be fighting relegation. Southampton are going to be fighting relegation as well. Chelsea are a direct rival and we beat them. That was a good result. And Wolves, I'm not convinced about Wolves. We'll have to wait about Wolves. A lot of people are saying, oh, a point against Wolves is a good result. I'm not convinced Wolves are that good. Look at them against Everton. They've been playing Thursday night, Sunday. I thought there was an opportunity to beat Wolves and I felt it was 2 points dropped. So the Crystal Palace result was a nightmare. The Southampton result wasn't much better, and I do think we dropped points against Wolves. So realistically, if we have dropped points against teams that I don't think the other top 4 clubs are going to drop. So we're playing a massive catch-up game already, and that is disappointing. Johnson says, can still get Pogba and get Bruno Fernandes with either Eriksen, Milinkovic, Savic or Koulibaly in June and in January. And George Ramos says, Mark, I think we can say Ollie is ruthless because when he said certain players won't be here, look what's happened. He's not playing around. Yes and no, George. I think he said a lot of those players were going to go after the Everton game. Well, Herrera didn't play in the Everton game. I don't know whether Sanchez did. Lukaku may have done and Smalling may have done. But a lot of the players that played badly in that Everton game are still here now. Your Rashfords and your Lingards are still here. Lingard, for me, over the start of the season, I don't like to say it, but you can just scrub your 1 out and you can have a 4. I think that some would say 3. I would give him a 4. I think that's embarrassing enough. I think to have 4 out of 10 when an average performance is 6 is shambolic, and I think Lingard has been a shambles. I know it's the international break. I saw him on an advert last night for Lynx. I've seen him on a YouTube video today, and he's having a great time and he's having a great laugh. I'm not going to dig that up and say he shouldn't be doing that. It's his life, what he does, but I do think it exposes the problem with Jesse Lingard is that off the field, he's world class. He's brilliant at promoting himself and whatever brand he's attached to. He's absolutely superb. On the pitch, I just wish we had decent. Just something. There is such a massive disparity between Jesse Lingard off the pitch and Jesse Lingard on the pitch. And it's irritable. It is irritating. A lot of United fans get irritated about it, and I do as well. You've got this player that you see on billboards, on adverts. Look at me, I'm having a great time. I'm a right laugh, me. And then on the pitch, you're having a laugh. So, Lingard, I don't even know what to say about Lingard anymore. I actually don't think he's a good player. I think he's a bench player at best, and I don't think he will ever find that form because he never had that form. He had like 6 weeks where he was amazing, and there's loads of footballers in history who've had this green spell, I suppose, where they're just amazing for a week or two or a month or two. The consistent factor with Lingard is he's just not good enough, and he doesn't get on the ball enough for a Premier League footballer. So a 4 for me. Daniel James, look, I'll give him an 8. To me, he doesn't get player of the month. It will definitely go to it would definitely go to Wan-Bissaka. He's been absolutely superb, Daniel James. Although what I would say is, similarly to McTominay, I did feel against Wolves, he wasn't that good. And Palace, he was a little bit better, but not that great. But Southampton, he was superb because he was out on the left-hand side. And also, you can't argue about a player that, you can forgive. And Jesse Lingard should sort of pick up on this. You can forgive poor performances if you contribute in another way. So Daniel James may not have played that well against Wolves, but he contributes over the 4 games with 3 goals, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'm happy with Daniel James. Who are you 100% confident of beating in the league, says SFPM. I'm never 100% confident of United beating anybody. Does anybody ever feel 100% confident with United these days? And Gagindi Pada says Manchester is blue. Ahaha. Mate, I hope that made you really happy inside, because I just thought it was quite an irrelevant comment. Murray says Lingard to Everton, flop, then on to the MLS. And the veteran trainer we've already read that. Sorry, we have already read that. James needs to play on the left. This is this is not how I think United should line up from now on. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is how Ollie has lined up statistically, average-wise, over the first 4 games, and I think this was the side that he wanted to come into the season with. Do you think Dean Henderson is good enough to replace De Gea, says Javon Wallace? Let's see at the end of the season. Rashford, for me, I'm not going to score him as low as Lingard, because he has got 2 goals against Chelsea, but I would put him as a 5. And I think that's a little bit harsh on McTominay, that Rashford gets the same score as McTominay, and maybe I should have knocked Lingard down to a 3 so I could give Rashford a 4, and in hindsight maybe I should have done that. But Rashford is way off the pace at the moment, and has been, like Lingard for a long time, way off the pace. I don't understand how 2 youth products who know the club like the back of their hand, who love the club, can be so symmetry in relation to poor performances for so long. I don't get it with Rashford. I don't know what's going on with Rashford. I'm not going to speculate and say, it's because if he hangs around with Lingard or whatever, or he thinks he's made it. I don't know. But he hasn't been good enough this season, and we've more than spoken about that for a long, long time. I just hope he can turn it around, because unlike Lingard, I think Rashford there's a good player in him. There is a very good player in Rashford. But he's being dragged down by something at the moment, and I don't really understand why. And with regards to Martial, I would give him an 8. I know he didn't play against Southampton. I think I said it last night. I think the club have got it wrong. I think that the 3 candidates for Player of the Month are Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, and James, and it shouldn't be Maguire. I think Maguire's been decent. I don't think he's been Player of the Month standard. I think Martial has been, and I think. What annoys me about the Martial situation is if he was from the youth setup and he was from Brexit FC, he'd be being touted as what a great start to the season he's had. I think people underestimate what Martial's done. He's gone from a winger that is apparently lazy and inconsistent to playing number 9 up against very good centre-backs, because that's what you get in the Premier League. It's very physical, it's very fast. He's suddenly shown 2 major parts to his game that nobody even thought he had. Hold-up play, intelligent running, loads of energy. He's got 2 good goals. One was scrappy against Chelsea, one was brilliant against Wolves. He didn't play against Southampton, and he may as well have not have played against Palace, because he got no service at all. For me, I think he's been absolutely brilliant, Anthony Martial, and nobody wants to talk about it because it doesn't fit the agenda of people who talk about United. Like, we know certain ex-players like to slag Martial off, so they're not going to say something positive about him. But I can tell you now, if Marcus Rashford had the start to the season Martial had, then nobody would be able to shut up about him. So I think it's important as a fan channel, and it's important as fans who do appreciate it, that we do shout about it, because I think he's been fantastic, and I can't wait for him to get back fit again, because I think he has been amazing in that position. And 2 goals from that is a good return, but it's more about what he's doing up there, the hold-up play, like I say, the link-up play, the movement to allow other people to make movements. Very, very good. Very, very good. Probably the best number 9 we've had since Zlatan. Really, really impressed with him. So that is a positive. But there you go. From Ollie's sort of best 11 at the start of the season, that's why we're not doing what we need to do, because you've got too many players not doing. I mean, it's a disparity, isn't it? You've got Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James, and Martial exceeding. You've got Rashford and Lingard and McTominay and Pogba not really doing what they need to do. And you could throw Luke Shaw into that, and maybe even David De Gea. And then Maguire's done reasonably well as well. And Lindelof's underperforming as well. So you can see there's too many players not performing to the level that they should be, despite having 2 or 3 players who are playing way above what we would expect. So, yeah, the players have got to take some accountability as well. The thing is, what can Ole Gunnar Solskjaer do going forward? And he's got issues because now we've got injuries. You know, Wan-Bissaka's injured. Luke Shaw is probably still going to be injured. Paul Pogba might be injured. Martial may still remain injured. And also, other people on the international break could pick up injuries. Let's not forget, Lindelof, Maguire, McTominay, Lingard, Rashford, they're all on international duty, as is Daniel James. So he's got a very, very difficult job coming up against Leicester. And then he's got to go to West Ham away, which is actually quite interesting because we played West Ham away around the same time last season with Mourinho and we lost. So there's lots of pressure on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and as a fan base, we've got to live in hope. That's what we're being sold by the club. Do I think he's going to turn it around? I don't have an answer to that, and I don't know whether you lot do either. But I do think he needs to learn from that first 4 games of the season and think, well, you know, I went into it with a certain way of playing, with a certain best 11, and they've let me down. Now, Greenwood needs to play more. I would say Angel Gomez needs to play more. And based on his performance against Southampton, Juan Mata should hold on to that number 10 shirt over Jesse Lingard. The problem with Juan Mata is, and Paul Scholes said it himself, I don't know why Juan Mata came off the pitch. I know why he came off the pitch, Scholesy, and everyone in this live chat knows why he came off the pitch, because Juan Mata can't play for more than 70 minutes anymore. That was the genius of giving him a 2-year contract. A player that can't play a 90-minute game. He can't. He physically can't do it anymore. So there's problems at Manchester United, but early season reports marking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer out of a 10, and I think we should all do that actually. Would you take Matteo Guendouzi at United, Mark? Says Ryan Mickelson. Yeah, I do. I really like his energy. I think he's good on the ball. I think he's got delivery. I mean, he set that goal up for Aubameyang. I like Guendouzi. I don't like looking at Arsenal and saying I like some of their players because I want to be better than Arsenal, but I think Arsenal's squad's better than ours. I think that Ceballos is fantastic. I think Kieran Tierney's a good signing. I thought Nicola Pepe's a good signing. They've got a good, very, very good front three with Aubameyang and Lacazette. You know, they're experienced goal scorers. Yeah, they're a little bit weak at centre-back, but David Luiz actually improves them. In the midfield, they've got a lot of options. They've still got Torreira. I think Arsenal are a much better team than us, but we can be a good team. We just need to step forward. A lot of people marking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a 4, some with a 5. Andrew Tavey gives him a 6. For me, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer so far, I would give him a 5. I wouldn't go as low as a 4. I would give him a 5. And I would give him a 5 because to go down to 4, looking at how I've marked the players, you'd be calling him a Jesse Lingard. I would call him a Scott McTominay or a Marcus Rashford, whereby there's been some good bits, but there's been some bad decisions, some bad bits as well. And I think that it's not been average. 6 is average. It's been below average. As a manager, I think Ole has started the season below average. And I think, you know, we all want him to do well. Well, most of us do. And I still think he can do well. But he needs to improve. And he needs to remove the players that are not playing well. Now, they can have little nicknames. Rashi, Lingy, you know, Youngie, Matici, whatever. But those players are not performing. And they're all experienced players. I know Rashford's young, but he is experienced. So I think Ole's got to be very brave when he comes back against Leicester. And I don't know that he will be. I think he will stick with the status quo. I think we will see the same bench again with the same sort of players involved. And I think he will ear towards experience. But I've said this before, and I think a lot of you have said it as well. What's the point in trusting experience when it keeps letting you down? You may as well go with an inconsistent youth because, yeah, they will let you down inadvertently because they're learning. But you'll get a lot more excitement and a lot more backing from the fans, and you'll get a lot more longevity in future. The thing about youth is, look at what Chelsea are doing. The thing about youth is, if you play Gomez, if you play Greenwood, if you play Chong, if you bring Garner in, if you play Twansebi, look, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to be inconsistent. They're going to have bad games with good games. But the more you play them, the more the inconsistency and the more the bad performances disappear, and the more closer you get to building something that can be really good. If you ignore the youth and stick with the experienced players, they just continue to do what they've done for the last 6 years. They underachieve, they get worse as they get older, and the problem never gets solved. It's short-termism that doesn't even work. Let's go long-term. Because, yeah, in the immediate future, the results might not be any better than going with the older lads. But in the long term, it will get better. And I think that's what Ollie needs to do. Greenwood needs to play more. I would get Gomez. Look, is he going to start Gomez against Leicester? Of course he's not. Can he get him on the bench? I think he should. And look, I would say, to be honest with you, after that start to the season and 3 wins in 16, this next phase Ollie's going into between now and the next international break is massively important. You've got 4 Premier League games. Yeah, we've got Carabao Cup and Europa, but it's the league games that you're going to be judged on. He's got Leicester at home. He's got West Ham away. He's got Arsenal at home. And I forget what I think we've got Newcastle. Away. From those games, I think he's got to, because of the start we've had, he's got to take 7 points, which means 2 wins and a draw. And you've got Newcastle, West Ham away, and Arsenal and Leicester at home. It's not easy, but I tell you what, Liverpool look at that and they take 12. So I'm not going to be sympathetic of that run. He's got to take 7 points from that. And do you think he can? Because I'm not so sure, but I think that's what he's got to do. He's got to take it in little mini breaks. Pogba needs to be in the number 10 position, says just your boy for real. Well, I'll answer that and say yes and no. I mean, Pogba more advanced is more dangerous, but Pogba more advanced in that formation means you've got to play McTominay and Matic, or McTominay and Fred, or McTominay and Pereira. It's not good enough. I personally think I don't like the 4-2-1-3 or the 4-2-3-1. I'd rather we went back to last season where we were doing a 4-3-3 with one holding midfielder and Pogba in the right side of midfielder, who was Herrera, going box to box. I would rather see that. I don't like the 4-2-3-1. It's too restrictive. Because if you play Pogba in the advanced midfield position, you've got a poor 2. If you play Pogba in the 2, you don't get the Pogba advanced. I'd go 4-3-3 and have 1 sitting with 2 going box to box. That's what I would do. Would you take Adnan Januzaj back, says Zayn Miasi? No, definitely not. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Please do smash a like on the video. Lots to digest in that video. It is the early season report for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Do you agree? Do you agree with what I've said? I mean, the reality is, as I say, you look at the league table and we've got a load of numbers on it, which we don't want. But that's where we are and that's where we deserve to be. And, you know, you look at that, 2 draws, a loss and a win. It ain't good enough. It isn't good enough. But you know, I think these next 4 games in the Premier League are going to be really, really important. And I just think you've got to learn from your mistakes and don't make the same mistakes again. Thanks everyone for watching. There is a call in at 8 o'clock tonight as well. Get your comments in below. Please smash a like on the video before you go. And let me just say thank you to everybody who's given their feedback on the podcast. I've added another podcast in. The link's in the video description if you're at work or at school and you want something to listen to. The podcast is available. The very first United Stand podcast. Me and Flex did it. A link's in the video description. You can watch it. We're not on iTunes yet. We're waiting for confirmation of that. So by next week we should have it. But you can still listen to it. There's loads of different options there. Give it a listen. Everyone's really enjoyed it. Yes, there's a couple of audio issues, but they're not major, and we will sort those out for next time. So link in the video description. Go and give the podcast a listen. Exclusive podcast. Really good topics. And I'll see you all at 8 o'clock.